lots of quilt tops at home that haven't made it to that final stage of being quilted? Well, I do. And in this video, I wanted to show you a really nice little project that will get you started with edge-to-edge quilting, because edge-to-edge quilting is a really great way of producing a quilt really quickly and easily. So I'm going to use my Bernina 570 QE, an embroidery unit, and one of the larger magnetic frames to produce this little project. So I really needed some cushions for my garden, and I thought the best way to do that would be to make some that are quite durable that could just stay outside. And I've decided to quilt the tops using the edge-to-edge quilting method, which I'm going to show you. So when you edge-to-edge quilt, you want your designs to all link together and they should flow over your design and really look like you've had your project long-armed. And because this is quite a small section to do, it's a really good introduction and a good way to have a little practice in doing it. And I've used some scrap materials and a little bit of vinyl for the back, so it's not going to cost very much to produce. So as we go through the video, we're going to show you exactly how I've done it, and I hope you'll join in. Okay, let's have a look what we need for this project. Okay, so the top of my cushion is going to be a quilt sandwich, so it's going to be made of 3 layers, and the final cushion is going to be 40 centimeters square. So I need my top fabric, which is going to be a piece of calico, which will be approximately 50 centimeters squared, and onto that I'm going to use some heat and seal, and I'm going to bond my fabric scraps. Then I'm going to place a sheet of organza on the top, because that keeps everything nice and neat when I'm quilting. It means none of the little bits are going to get caught. So once I've done that, I'm going to lay that on top of my wadding, and that's also going to be roughly 50 centimeters squared. And then I'm going to place another sheet of calico behind it to make up my 3 layers, which I'm going to quilt. For the backing, I'm going to use some vinyl. Now I'm going to use some white vinyl, and the reason I'm using this is because it's nice and wipe clean, and because these cushions are going to go in the garden, I thought that would be a good option to make them nice and durable. I'm also going to create some piping using the vinyl, and I've got some piping cord here. So that's going to neaten the edges, and then I have an invisible zip to pop in at the bottom, so I can get my cushion pad in and out. In terms of thread, for construction of the cushion, I'm just going to use some Metler Cerilon thread, and for my quilting, I'm going to use some Metler Polysheen. I'm not sure which colour to use, whether to use the orange or the pink yet. To create the piping, I'm going to use my foot 12C, my bulky overlock foot, because that's a really, really useful foot when creating a project. I've also got some nice light blue fabric, which I'm going to cut some flowers out of just to give it a bit of interest. And also this helps to show up the lovely quilting that I'm going to do, because they're sort of clearer areas. Yep, I think that's all we need to get started. Okay, so now we need to prepare my fabrics for the top. I'm going to cut out 4 flowers, and then I'm going to cut down some of these scraps into smaller bits before I put them onto the calico. There's so many memories involved in each one of these fabrics. Every time I look at it, I think, oh, I can remember making this out of it or that out of it. So this is one of my favourite parts of the process. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just draw around my flowers. So as I say, I'm going to do 4, so just roughly. So that's my flowers cut out, and now I'll put these to one side. I am just going to chop up these fabrics into smaller sections. You don't have to be too precise, so we're just going to stick them all down, just some smaller bits so they're easier. Oh, this is one of my dad's shirts, and they're all sort of slightly different weights, mainly cottons. But I don't think that's going to matter, because, as I say, we're going to quilt it all together. Oh, this is my daughter's. This has got little Yodas on it, I think. Star Wars. Yeah, I think I could tell you a tale about all of these fabrics. So, put those to one side and get my base of fabric. So this has still got the paper on it, so I'm just going to peel the paper off. Oh, it's quite satisfying. You keep that piece of paper because I'm going to use that when I iron my top bits down, so I don't get my iron all dirty. So I'll just keep that to one side. And what I'm going to do is, with the larger flowers, I'm just going to place them roughly where I want them. So I'm going to go for that about there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw around the edges and leave a gap where I'm going to put my scrappy bits, so then I can just stick them straight on top, but they'll have something to bond to. So I'm just going to quickly mark those out. Okay, so that's all my pieces put down and my flowers in place. I'm going to take it over to the ironing board and just bond that down so it's going to hold nicely when I put the organza on and quilt it. Great, okay, so now I'm going to put my quilt sandwich together. So I've got my backing and I've got some wadding and I've got my top piece and I've got my organza. So it's going to be quite thick, but I think that's going to be fine because it's, as I say, it's going to go outside. I'm going to use my trusty 505 spray. So this is a temporary adhesive to hold all my layers together just while I'm quilting them. So this is great. So I'm just going to spray it all down. Then I'm going to get my waddings. This is a fairly light wadding. Just going to place that on top. Smooth that down. And then we're going to have another little spray. And then I'm going to place my top section on. That lined up. Tiny little bit, but the good thing about this is you can you can move things around, so you can take them up and then put them back down again. How's that looking? Yep. So I'm going to stick that little bit of help, smooth down, and then finally just going to do a really light spray on the top. And I'm going to put the organza on. As I say, so this is to stop any of these like little pokey bits getting caught up around the embroidery foot, but it doesn't really detract too much. It gives it a nice sort of sheen. So pop that there, and again smooth that down. And it actually makes the quilting stand out a bit more because it's going on top of this little bit of organza. There we go. Excellent, so that's all our layers together and they're not going to come apart when we hoop them up. So the next thing is the exciting bit. We're going to go over to the machine and we're going to edge to edge quilt. This is going to be great. Okay, so now we're coming up to the fun bit. We're going to quilt the cushion top. And we're going to do this with an edge-to-edge design. Now, an edge-to-edge design should look like the design is just flowing across your project, and it's going to look a bit like it's been long-armed. Now, the great thing about those designs is you shouldn't be able to see where it starts or ends. Visually, it should just hold it all together and look beautiful. So what we're going to do with edge-to-edge designs, the start and the end point are always in line. So it's really easy to rehoop and get them to join together. Now, normally with edge-to-edge designs, you would use a BQM file, which is a running stitch file. But on a 570 QE, they don't actually read BQM files. This is for machines from the 7 series upwards. And the great thing about a BQM file is that you can adjust the stitches per inch. So you can really rescale them and they still look great. But we don't have to worry about that today because we can still use an EXP file. So our embroidery unit and our machine understands a file format that ends in EXP. And there are lots of wonderful designs available, edge-to-edge designs, available in an EXP format. So that's perfect. So actually on your machine, you do have 4 built-in designs. So you could use one of the built-in designs to start off. You wanted to have a little practice, or you can download a design from the internet. And I went to OESD. They are a big company that produce lots and lots of different embroidery designs. And I searched for their pantograph designs or their line designs, and lots of different options came up. and I've actually found a really nice floral design that I'm going to use. Now I am going to use the wonderful magnetic hoop. This is the medium magnetic hoop, and it will fit on your 5 series, but as we can see it's oblong. So I wanted to find a design that was oblong, that I could fill the whole area with that design, and I found, as I say, I found a really nice floral one. So I've downloaded that and I've loaded it onto my USB key, and I've gone into my embroidery area and I have it up on screen. Now what I needed to do was tell my machine that I have the medium magnetic hoop on. So I've selected that, there it is. I can come out of that. Now we can see my design on the screen here, and it starts there and ends there. Now what I want to do is I want to make it a little bit bigger, because at the moment it's 109 by 175. I want to increase it to 145 millimeters wide. Now the maximum I can go on this with the hoop I have is actually 165 wide. But I'm not going to go that wide because I want a little bit of room to be able to position, and I might need to, move it around the hoop a little bit. So I'm only going to go to 145. So to do that, I'm going to go into information, and I'm going to go into my resizing icon, and I'm going to take it up, and I'm going to just look here at the size it's showing me, and I'm going to go to 145. So making it a little bit bigger. Just tweaking it a tiny bit, there we go, brilliant. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go back a stage. I am going to flip it, so we now have it sewing with my start there and my end at the bottom. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Then I'm going to come out, and now I'm going to set my machine up for embroidery. I've already attached my embroidery unit, but I need to change my stitch plate and my foot and thread up. So I'm going to go away and do that. Okay, so now we're getting ready to hoop up our project before we put it on the machine. Now, Bernina produce a range of different styles of hoop. We have the hoops that you tighten, the oval hoops that you tighten with a screw mechanism. We have some hoops that you tighten with a ratchet. But because we're quilting and we've got quite thick layers, the best options to use on the 5 series are either the magnetic hoop, so this is the medium magnetic hoop, or the small clamp hoop, which I have here. So the differences are, with the clamp hoop, what you do is you clamp your fabric into place using these clamps. You can just position them there, and you can also use your template to kind of press everything down and to align things. So that's a clamp hoop. With the and the size of that hoop is 16.5 centimeters by 16.5 centimeters. So that's the area you can stitch out. Or on the medium magnetic hoop, you've got a larger area, as we can see, which is 16.5 by 26.5. So you're getting much more coverage on your quilt for each hooping up. And this is a magnetic hoop, so it comes with, it has magnets that are all the way around it, so that really clamps our project firmly in between the hoop and allows it to move around with no problems. You get a lovely stitch out with that. The magnets are really evenly spaced around, so it really does hold everything tight. And also it has some little bit of tape on the back so it doesn't mark the bed of your machine. This one also comes with a really useful template, which we're going to use in a minute. And it comes with this piece of card that we must keep in when we're not using it, otherwise it clamps together and it's really hard to get apart. But we'll have a look at that when we hoop up. So they're the two options, but as I say, because I want to cover as much as I can in one hooping, I'm going for the medium magnetic hoop. Okay, so we're going to hoop up. So I have drawn a straight line across the top and down the side. So this is marking my 40 centimeters that I need to definitely quilt. But we're going to quilt over the edge because this is an edge-to-edge design, it can flow all the way over. So we're going to give ourselves a little bit of extra room by quilting over the edge. So I'm going to use my magnetic hoop, and it's got these, can we see these handy little gaps here? So this is to help you get your fingers underneath it to get it open. So I'm just going to lift it up. I'm just going to put this top section to one side. And I've got my template, and I can take the card out because this is just for storage. Okay, so I've got my template. So I'm going to work out where I want my embroidery to go. So I'm just going to line up one of these lines with the line I already marked out, so I get it as square as I can. Then I can just pop the bottom of the hoop underneath, and I'm just going to kind of pinch it and just position it so it's as straight as I can get it. So just checking, just using that template so it's sitting inside the bottom hoop. Then I can take my top hoop, and it really does sort of clamp fast and clamp hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up with the edge of the handle and just make sure it's in place. Then I'm going to take my fingers and I'm just going to gently bring it down because it just kind of snapped, there we are, into place. So just going to check that again. That looks nice and straight. That looks really good. Okay, so now I can take my template out and I can take it over to the machine. So I'm going to put my hoop onto the machine, slide that underneath there, and it attaches with the normal mechanism, same as all the other hoops. Just pop that on. Now with the hoops, if you haven't used this hoop before, you need to update the firmware on your machine so that your machine knows all about it, knows all the dimensions and everything. So to do that, you can go to the Bernina website into the support page for your 570 QE, and there will be the latest firmware, and that will give, once you've loaded it onto the machine, it will have all the information it needs. Otherwise you won't be able to find it in the menu. And that will also update it for the clamp hoop if you went for the clamp hoop option. Okay, so we've got it on and it knows all about it. It knows it's a magnetic hoop. Now the next thing I need to do is, because we are going to bring our threads up and sew them in manually, so we get a really lovely result on the back, we don't get any knots, I am going to have to go into setup and alter that. So I'm going to go into home and into setup and into my embroidery settings. Then I'm going to go into my cutting settings here, the scissors, and I'm just going to turn those off, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to go into my securing option here, and I'm going to turn those off as well. So now it shouldn't secure at the beginning or at the end or cut, because I'm going to do that manually. Then I'm going to go back into embroidery, and now we're ready to position our design. So to position the design, we go back into information and we press the check button here. And that is going to show us the corners of our design and show us exactly where they are on our project. Okay, so I'm going to see where the corner, so if I press here, it's gone to my top left corner, and I can see that I need to be a bit further up. So I can use my length dial to move everything right up. So I just want to be as far up as I can go there, go a bit further. Perfect. And we want to go over to the side. Great, so we've got it in that corner, so that's great. And then we can come out of there and we're going to go into our stitch out, and now it's going to go to the first point of the design, which is up the top, and then I can bring my needle up, needle down, and we can start to sew. So I'm going to go needle down, needle up, and just pull that up, find my tweezers. Now we've got those both to the top because we're going to sew our ends in, and then we can start to sew. Okay, so I'm just going to trim my top thread, and it's a bit tricky, but I'm going to go underneath and pull my bottom thread out and just trim that. And then I will be able to pull that thread up to the top and sew that in. Okay, so that's my first hooping done. I can press green tick, and what it's going to do is it's actually going to jump back to the start, but I am going to go rehoop, and then I'm going to line up with the end So we're ready to continue on. So I'm just going to go and rehoop. Okay, so I've brought my threads up to the top and I've just rested them on the top here. I mean, I could tape them down. Sometimes it's easier to do that, or you can sew them in straight away. I'm going to take the hoop off. So using the little notches in the side, I'm going to lift it up, remove the top hoop. Then I'm going to get my template and place it on so I know where I need to put my design. So I need to have the end of the first hooping within the grid, otherwise I can't line it up. So I'm going to place that approximately 1 centimetre in, and the same with the side markings, that needs to be within the grid so it's all lining up. So I'm going to go for about there. Then I'm going to slide my under hoop down into position and just check. So I can feel by pushing down that my template is within the hoop. It's got a slight lip, so you can kind of feel that it's in the right place. So I can leave that there. Then I can take my top of the hoop and stand it up against the connector. Get that in the right place, make sure it's lined up. Then I can hold it and gently bring it down. Okay, and put my template in straight, and then I can see that the end of that hoop, the first hooping, is definitely within the grid, and I've kept it fairly straight. I can see my little line is going straight down. So I think I'm ready to go over to the machine. Okay, so when I finished my first hooping, I pressed the flag to say I'd finished, and the machine automatically jumps to the first stitch of the new hooping. I've hooped up, put my hoop on, and I can see it's just a little bit out. So what I can do is, in my stitch out screen, I can go to my move icon here, and I can just adjust my needle position so it's touching the end of the last design. So I can just, I can go up, and then I just need to use my hand wheel just to check I'm in the correct position. Perfect. Okay, so that's great. So I can come out of that. So now I'm perfectly lined up, and I can do my needle down as we did before. Needle up, bring my threads to the top. So now I'm ready to start sewing. When we're continuing our design on a 570, we just need to make sure that we're lined up, we're hooped up straight. If you're hooped up straight, you can see it's really easy just to jump to the start of the previous design and stitch out. It looks fabulous. But if you're a little bit wonky, then that can cause issues. So this is when features like pinpoint placement and the laser, which come on machines later, are really, really useful. So that's fantastic. So with those machines, you don't really need to worry about keeping so straight and using the template so much, because they've got those tools that allow you to morph the design slightly. So you get a beautiful stitch out. But as you can see, on a 570, it's still perfectly capable of doing it, and it's really not that hard. We just need to hoop up straight. So we are all ready for our next stitch out, and it's going to line up beautifully. And yeah, we're ready to go. Okay, so that's hooping is finished. I'm going to press my tick. It's going to jump back to the beginning, but we're going to rehoop to the side, and then we're going to carry on going down. So I'm going to trim here, and again I'm going to trim at the back. So I'm going to bring my threads to the top, sew them in, and now we're going to go off, and I'll show you how to rehoop when you're doing the next row. To help line up with my next row, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line across in line with the start point of the first one, just so I can make sure I'm all lined up straight. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line. So this is tailor's chalk, so it's going to come out, but I'm going to draw a line on the edge of this design, just here like this. When I do my placement, I can do my grid here, and I know that my next hooping is going to fit really nicely. So that's just made sure that I'm lined up with the very corner of my first design. So my new one is going to fit nicely, and it's all going to cover my project. So now I've marked those, I'm ready to put my hoops back on. I'm going to get my template, my trusty template, and I'm going to put it on. So I've got a little bit of room. So these are within the template, and I can just slide the bottom one underneath. I'm going to pinch and lie that down. It's going to do a little bit of rearranging, and yep, it's not bad at the top. Might pull it down a little bit, but then we're ready to go and put it back on the machine. Okay, so I've rehooped, and when I finished the last hooping, it always jumps back to the first stitch of the new hooping, which is up here. But what I want to do is I want to position my design so I know I've got it in the right spot. So I'm going to go into Edit on the screen, into Information, and I'm going to go into Check, and it's going to show me where the design is going to go. Now, I've drawn my lines on my work that we did earlier, so I know where it needs to be, and it's a little bit out. So I'm just going to move it up and across. So I've got it right on that corner, so I'm happy with that. And then I can just check some of my other points. That's looking nice and straight. It's looking great. Might as well go all the way around. So once I'm happy with it, I know it's all in line, I can come out of there and I can go into Stitch Out. And now it's going to the start of the design, and I can see it's on the line and it's in line with my last hooping, so I know I'm good to go. So then I can just do needle down, needle up, bring my threads to the top, and now I'm ready to stitch out again. And then I can press and go and start my next row. Okay, so we're going to rehoop. So we can take our top section off. We can place our template on, so we need to remember just to get this line within the template, and also the edge of the previous hooping needs to be in the template. So I'm lining up, making sure the end of the last hooping is within the grid, and also the edge of the previous hooping is in this side, so that's all lined up. And then I can put my hoop on. Pop it up against the side like we've done before, so it's right up against that clamp. Then I can lower it down, just check again that I'm within, which I am. Perfect, and then I can go over and do my next stitch out. Okay, so I'm going to press tick and it's going to jump to where it thinks it should go, and I'm almost bang on this time. That's very pleasing. But I'm just going to go into move and just move it a tiny bit because I want it to line up really nicely. Yep, that's looking good. So then I can come out of this and do needle down, needle up, bring my threads up. Okay, so where we go. Okay, so this is the top of my pillow, all quilted. I'm really pleased with it. So in the end, it took 6 hoopings and I just finished off the last row. It's all joined together beautifully. So I challenge you to find where the start and end points are. It's looking really good. It even looks quite nice on the back. We're all ready now to cut it out. So it's 40 centimetres, and then I'm going to leave a 2 centimetre seam allowance all the way around the edge because I'm going to sew my piping on. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to overlock the edges with my lovely L890 just to keep it all neat and flat and all those layers together to make it easier when I put the piping on. So that is going to be the next stage, to cut around the edge and overlock it. And then we're going to move on to making the piping and constructing the pillow. Okay, now I'm going to make the piping that's going to go around the edge of the cushion. So I've got some 4mm piping cord and I've cut a strip of the vinyl out. So this is 4 centimetres wide, this strip. And I'm going to be using my very useful 12C, my bulky overlock foot. So this foot has this large tunnel underneath, so that sits over the piping cord, holds it in place, and it allows you to sew really close up to the edge of it. You create really neat piping. So I'm going to pop this on. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap it around the cord, and I'm just going to pop a couple of these really handy little clips to hold it in place just while I get started. And then I'm just going to sew all the way down. So I'm going to pop it underneath, and I'm going to move my needle position over to position 4. Now this line on the foot, that shows me where the edge of the tunnel is, so it's good to have my stitching to go just down there. And I'm just going to get this all lined up. Just check that that's in a good spot. That looks good. And I've threaded up with some white thread on the top and the bottom, and then we're just going to stitch down. So I'm using my bulky overlock foot again because I'm now going to sew the piping that I created onto the cushion top. So we've got it laying nice and flat, and I've got my little clips here holding it into place. And I'm just going to sew down until I get to the corner, and then I'm going to cut into the edge of this piping cord to help me mould it round the corner, and then I'm going to carry on. So we've still got our stitch length as 3. I've changed my needle position slightly, so I'm in position 3. I was on 4, so that's just going to be slightly in from the last row of stitching I did. And away we go. So I'm just going to nip in here, just do a little trim, so I can get that to go around that corner nicely. So we're just going to stitch down, and I'm just going to start with my needle down. And then I'm going to use my knee lift to help me just twist round. I'm going to do a couple of stitches, and I'm going to use my knee lift, pivot, do a couple more because I want to be nice and tight to the cord. Pivot, and I think one more, and then we're going to be back in that groove. Brilliant, and now we can just whiz our way down. Knee lift is so handy when you're doing little jobs like this. Or of course, if I didn't want to use my knee lift, I could use my built-in hovers, which is another lovely feature on this model. And then I'm just going to twist it right round so it's nice and flat again in that groove. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snip out the end of this. Like that. So we've got a little open bit, and then I'm going to trim. So I'm going to cut this in line with that, make a little mark with my nail, and then I'm going to trim. I'm going to cut that there, and then I can fold that round, tuck that round like that, and then hopefully I'll get a nice neat join my stitch down. So let's just hold that in position, hold that flat. Just do a little back stitch and cut, and there we go, all added on. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to insert an invisible zip into the back of the cushion, or you could use a normal zip, it's up to you. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to insert the side that's got the piping on with my bulky overlock foot, because it needs to pass over the piping, and it's obviously quite a built-up area, so I'm trying to get it as close as I can. So I'm using foot 12C. When I positioned my invisible zip, I just marked the center of the zip and marked the center of the cushion. So I made sure it's all lined up. And then when I do the other side, everything should marry together nicely. So I'm in position. I've got my zip really close to the piping. Now I'm just going to stitch down and do a little bit of back stitching at the end. And I'm going to move my needle position one position out to position 4, just to give it a bit more room for everything to pass down. So let's just check that needle's going in where I want it to, and I think it is. So away we go. So if I had my invisible zipper foot, which I'm going to use on the other side, it would get that in a good position for me. But I just think because of the bulk of the piping, that this is a better way just to do this side. Okay, so for this side of the zip, I can actually use my foot 35, my invisible zip foot. Now this is a brilliant foot because it's got these grooves underneath. What happens is the zip sits in the groove and it actually kind of lifts the coil of the zip up so you can get really close with your needle so you can get a really neat result. And because this is flat, I can use this, whereas on the other side it was a bit tricky because of it was so close to the piping. So I'm just going to swap these feet over. So I'm going to take 12C off and put my foot 35 on. And I'm going to go in and tell it I've got foot 35. So we'll just search for foot 35. There we go. I'm happy with everything else. I'm just going to pop this thread just through here. I might bring my bobbin thread up as well, so just get everything nice and orderly. Okay, so I'm going to pop it into my left hand coil. I'm just going to lower it down with my knee lift, and then away we go. I can just see, it's just lifting up. I'm just going to give it a little bit of help. Get it right in the right spot. Take that out. There we go, perfect. I did match up the middle of the zip with the middle of the vinyl, just so hopefully everything will line up nicely at the end. It's just handy having those markings. I've also marked where the zip needs to end. This zip is a little bit long. And then as I get to this point, just do a few back stitches and use my scissors, which have been programmed with the knot, so I'm all nice and secure. And there we are, that's all sewn down. So now I just need to pin my two sections together and sew all the way around the edge. That's the next stage. Okay, so I've got my invisible zip in, and the next stage is just to sew it all together. So to do that, I am actually going to use my bulky overlock foot again, because I've still got that thick piping in there, so I think that's going to help. I've moved my needle position to position 4 because I want to be quite close up to where the edge of the piping is, so I can just nip that in the 2 layers to get a nice look when I turn it through. So the first bit's going to be the tricky little corner bit, and then we can go round. So yeah, off we go, and then we're nearly done, which is very exciting. To pop that underneath there, so I'm going to be at just a slight angle to start off with. But I can use the guide on the foot to line up with the stitching I've already done, which is great. So I'm just going to bring that down. And then I'm just going to twist it around using my knee lift, just so I'm trying to stay as close as I can to that piping, so it looks nice and neat when I'm turning it through. Just use that guide, and down we go. So it's going through all these lovely thick layers beautifully, so it's great. And I love these little clips because you don't have to take them out. What I must say is I opened my zip before I started this, which is very important, otherwise you'll sew it all together and you'll never get it open again. I'm just going to twist around. Just do a couple of stitches around that little corner. This is where the knee lift is, you just can't beat it. Okay, so now we can turn it through. Okay, so it's all sewed together now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to really trim down these edges because they're very bulky for when we turn it through. But that's the next stage, to trim and turn it through, and then we'll be able to show you the finished project. Okay, so this is the project all finished. I've turned it through and put my cushion pad inside, and I'm really pleased with it. I think it looks great. It's going to look really good in my garden. I think this is such a good starter project if you're going to just dip your toe into edge-to-edge quilting, because it's not too big. The materials don't cost too much. You can use up your scraps, but you end up with something really useful. So I definitely think it's worth a try. In terms of our edge-to-edge quilting, it took 6 hoopings in the end, and the design is flowing beautifully across the cushion. And yeah, I'm really pleased with it. So here's my finished edge-to-edge quilted cushion.